Okay, now let us create a square class. The square class has some characteristics and it has behavior. What is the characteristic? That it has a side. And what is the behavior? It has an area. We want to calculate the area. So we'll write a function for calculating the area. Okay. So this function must return something. We'll use void for returning. It means it won't return anything. Void means that this function will not return anything. If we write public here, this is the access specifier, which means that anybody can access this function. If it's private, then it's restricted access. We'll talk about access control later on, or you can go through them on internet. Okay, public void calc area. So this is the characteristic, and this represented by a variable, and this is the behavior, which is represented by a function. Now how to create an instance of square class, or how to create an object. Okay, let us create an object. Square s1 is equal to new square. We use new operator to create an object. Now this object is as a reference which can be used to access the data members and the member function of the class. So we can access the data member using a dot operator, same with the reference name, then function name, and we can call the member functions. So this is the data member and member functions which we can access through reference variable created when we create an object using new operator, and we can access them using dot operator. So now we are initializing this variable here. But Java has given us a better approach for initializing variable using constructors. Initializing each instance this way is really difficult. So Java has given us constructors which is used for initializing the objects. Now let us see how do we use constructors. Now I'll initialize using constructor. Now it's saying this is an error. What is a constructor? Now we'll create one constructor. Constructor has a property that it has the same name as the class and it does not have any return type. So it's basically like a function, but different in a way that it doesn't return anything, and it will specially have a name which is of this class. It will have the same name as that of the class. Now we need to pass this, we'll initialize the variable side using the constructor. By default, Java compiler gives you one default constructor which is for automatic initialization of the instance variables. What are instance variables? See, this is the instance variable, and instance variables are member variables which are defined inside the class but outside the function. So for which each object when they are created of the class has a separate copy. So for initializing these instance variables, for initializing the object, constructors are used. By default, Java gives you a default constructor which is used to initialize the data members. This is called a parameterized constructor. This is called a no argument constructor. So we can have more constructor like this in which we can have more than one arguments. This is called constructor overloading. You can study about overloading feature of object-oriented programming in detail. So this is all about constructors. They are mainly for initializing the object. So now let us discuss about variables. This we have discussed that instance variables are declared inside the class but outside any method. These are called instance variables. Now local variables. In this function, if I declare one variable area, and I'm using this area to calculate the area of this square. So this area which is declared inside the method is called the local variable. Okay, and this is called the instance variable. Third type of variable in Java is the static variables. So what are static variables? See, static variables, class variables are also known as static variables and are declared with the static keyword. They are declared outside the method, constructor or a block. There will be one copy of each class variable per class regardless of how many objects are created from it. Okay, now let us see how to create a static variable and why do we actually need it. We declare the static variable using static keyword. Now, if I want to calculate the number of square objects I have created, I will declare one variable static which will calculate the number of squares objects I have created. Now, every time an object is created, constructor is called. So, I am incrementing this value here in the constructor. So, whenever the object is created, this will be incremented. So, now we have one object created, so num square value will become 1. Now, supposing we create one more object of square, s2 is equal to, using new operator, we create one more object. And we pass 6 here. Okay. So, now we have two objects. Let us print this variable and see what happens. Okay, this is the static variable which you are going to print in the console, and let's see whenever number of objects. So 2. So we have created two square objects, two instances of class square. So it's printing 2. So what are static variables? Is one which is associated with a class and not the objects of this class. That's why it's counting the number of squares we have created, because every time an object is created, this value is incremented because this is for the whole class. If it would have been for an object, then it would have printed 1 only, because that would be associated with one object, but it's associated with the whole class. That's why it's printing 2. Now we can access the static variables directly using the class name square dot, and we can initialize it with some value like that. So this also shows that it's for the class. Normally we access any instant variable using the object reference. Here we use the class. We cannot access it using s1 dot num square. No, it's not possible. It's not possible. That because it's for the whole class. So now do you understand the difference between instant variable and static variables? Instant variables are declared in a class but outside a method, constructor, or any block. Instant variables are created when an object is created with the use of the keyword new and destroyed when the object is destroyed. Instant variables, they have default values. For numbers, the default value will be 0. For booleans, it is false, and for object references, it is null. So values can be assigned during the declaration or within the constructor, like we have done. And the class variables, they are known as static variables, and they are declared with the static keyword. There will be one copy of each class variable per class, regardless of how many objects are created from it, and they can be accessed by calling class name dot variable name. So I think so instant variables and static variables and local variables are pretty clear to you. What are constructors? And I will suggest that you make one circle and one rectangle class for practicing these concepts. Okay,